Amongst the attacking players, in fact, only Kepa, Rodrigo, Jorginho and Azpilicueta played in both games. So what does Sarri do against Liverpool at Anfield?
Plays his best team.
Which is, but what is his best team?
Well, his best team at the moment would be more akin to the one that finished or played in the West Ham game, which would be not Kovacic or Barkley, but would be Ruben Loftus-Cheek, which probably should have happened a while ago. And also Callum Hudson-Odoi on one side and Eden Hazard on the other. I think, you know, Higuain will probably play. But more importantly, those two, Hudson-Odoi and Loftus-Cheek, because they perform well. Perform well in the Premier League. They've performed well previously in the Europa League. And I would be surprised if that wasn't it. But I don't think it's the greatest worry for Liverpool, who he plays, to be honest with you. But I would imagine that's the team he's going to go with.
What are your thoughts, Steve?
I would 100% think it's the team that played at West Ham. And quite frankly, the introduction of Hudson-Odoi and Loftus-Cheek has given this team a breath of fresh air. You know, thinking of Chelsea 3-4 weeks ago, it was, how are they going to get in the top four? Now you see it's a completely different Chelsea. It's a vibrant Chelsea. And I didn't think it was possible because Hazard's been Chelsea's best player all season. But he's actually looks as though he's taken a step up because of the introduction of these two young guys. They've just brought a new life to Chelsea.
And he's flipped it around, hasn't he, Sarri? Those two were playing in the Europa League just 2-3 weeks ago and not playing in the Premier League.
Yeah, and Hudson-Odoi gave him some natural width and he held his... OK, it was against West Ham, who are a decent side, but no, they're kind of, you know, mid-table. He held his width and that just allowed... that allowed Chelsea to stretch, particularly in the first half, just stretch the game a little bit. And obviously, Ruben Loftus-Cheek's a good runner from midfield, so that distracts people as well, and that creates spaces. And Eden Hazard was able to do some magical things in that first 45 at Stamford Bridge. But the one thing I thought about Chelsea in the first half, for a change this season, they passed the ball with a purpose. Yeah. You know, in the first 45 at home, it wasn't against West Ham. It wasn't just passing it, the little sideways, a little back. They actually passed it quicker and they passed it forward more often with a bit of a purpose. And I think that was beneficial to the team as well.
Robbo, what do you make of Chelsea at the moment? Because, let's face it, they had an awful January, didn't they? But since then, only one loss in 12 in all competitions. But are you suspicious of this Chelsea revival at all?
No, I think it is a revival. It was only 2 or 3 games ago when they were 1-0 down at Cardiff and the crowd was singing, "We want Sarri out, you don't know what you're doing." And he made a couple of changes in that game. They win the game 2-1 right at the end. And from that moment on, they've looked a much more vibrant side. As Steve said, they've played with more forward purpose. Callum Hudson-Odoi coming onto the right-hand side. He wants to go past people with the ball. Loftus-Cheek gives them more dynamism in that central midfield area. And that's been the key to it. Passing forward, playing at a higher tempo, more pacey players running with the ball and players that can go past people as well as Hazard and Hudson-Odoi. And then, of course, you can bring Willian on, who played very well in midweek.
When you had Barkley and Kovacic, it was easier for the opposition to defend against. Yeah. Because neither of them want to go running into the penalty box. Now, with the Loftus-Cheek coming in, you can't, as a full-back for the opposition, you can't stand off the two wide guys. That means you're opening holes up in the middle, in the penalty box. And Loftus-Cheek can't wait to get into the penalty box. So now you're adding an extra goal scorer. So they're just a completely different team to play against.
Of course, that can turn in a heartbeat. All this, you know, Robbo mentioned Cardiff, where they got back. I mean, it was a huge slice of luck because the officials were horrendous that day, and that benefited Chelsea big time. So they've taken advantage of that for the time being. However, their fight for Champions League football's on 2 fronts, I suppose. You know, Europa League and the Premier League. Top 4, which is going to be tight. However, we know how fickle the business is, and if this Liverpool team absolutely need to put the hammer down. And I think the question is, can this Chelsea midfield, and more importantly, this Chelsea defence, cope with Liverpool? Yeah. You know, because if they don't, it could get messy for Chelsea. And all of a sudden, you know, the knives are out for Sarri again. So it's a very fine line for him at the moment.
Seems like Sarri is sticking with Gonzalo Higuain, Robbo. Chelsea's revival happening with Higuain still misfiring, though.
Yeah, he's not playing as well as he can do, but he's still a very clever player. He makes great little runs. He's got a good understanding. One of the reasons that Jorginho is playing slightly better and passing the ball forward is because he's got a good understanding with Higuain. And he will link up the play. Hazard loves to come in field and play little 1-2s. Higuain's good at doing that. He's not scoring goals at the moment, but he is a very good player. He's a clever player so that other players can play off of him at times. And his movement is excellent, brings defenders short, spins into the box, or doing the other thing. Sometimes he tries to make forward runs, then comes short and lets other players run beyond him. But you can only do that if, as Steve said, you've got players like Loftus-Cheek running beyond him, Hazard running beyond him, Hudson-Odoi running beyond him. That's what they need.
I tell you what, going back to that point that Robbo made, if you've watched Jorginho in the last 3 or 4 games in particular, he's played, if the wide player or the fullback plays a little 10-yard ball into him, every now and again he whips it around the corner, usually over the top. And Higuain, and it's a relationship obviously they had at Napoli for a bit, and Higuain's looking to run off the shoulder of the defenders. I'm sure it's something Liverpool have picked up on, but I've seen him try to do it at least half a dozen times, and a couple of times it's actually came off. So he is looking to play the ball actually a bit more forward and sometimes being a bit more creative.
Let's have a look at what the odds makers tell us about Sunday at Anfield. Liverpool 4-6 on firm favourites. You can get over 3-1 on the draw, over 4-1 on a Chelsea victory. But here's the rub. Well, and Jurgen Klopp has said he's not looking into any history at all in this fixture. Of course, the 2014 game is one he's eager to push aside. But no wins in the last 8 home games for Liverpool against Chelsea in all competitions. 6 in the league, 2 in the League Cup, dating back to 2012. John Joe Shelby was still playing for Liverpool last time, and he scored last time they beat Chelsea.
Do you know, isn't it amazing how when it's convenient, what happened in the past doesn't count? But the truth is, it doesn't.
No.
And what Liverpool have been doing at home means that, no question, they are favourites. And listen, if Van Dijk was playing centre-back for Chelsea and we had David Luiz, Liverpool, I would be a worried man. But you know what? David Luiz is going to get dragged all over the place by Firmino. So, you know what? Chelsea can go forward. Chelsea can be vibrant. They can create. But this Liverpool side, forget your history. Forget Gerrard. This Liverpool side is a different Liverpool side to the ones in the recent past. This team are going to show Chelsea what it's all about. History
seems to be the only thing psychologically weighing down Liverpool.
Yeah, I saw Klopp touching that, and a little quote for his press conference. He walked in and that was thrown up, and he said, "I hadn't even thought about it."
Not for one second.
Why would he?
Yeah. Do you think any Liverpoolers are going to be going, "Hey lads, we've not beaten Chelsea"? I don't think so.
Well, the manager won't, and the players won't. The fans. That's a different.
No, the only thing this comes down to is the quality of the starting 11 in the squads. And let's be frank, if Liverpool are on top of the game, they should win this game. Yeah. Maybe Chelsea could nick a draw and you know, give Man City an advantage, but I don't see it. I see Liverpool at home pressurising Chelsea, creating chances and picking holes in a back four that, you know, has improved recently, but let's be honest, the standard of the opposition haven't been of a par of Liverpool.
I believe that is 2 for the Reds. Stuart Robson, you're going to make it 3?
I am going to make it 3, but I'm going to go slightly different to what Steve said. I think Firmino will play on, or Jorginho, or play just off of him, and he'll cause him all sorts of problems. He'll pinch the ball off me, he'll run beyond him at times, and Salah will give David Luiz a real problem, breaking in between the fullback and the centre-half. So I still think those 2 players will cause Chelsea lots of problems, and that's why Liverpool win the game.
Liverpool 37 games unbeaten and counting in the Premier League at home. The Premier League fixture is looking like this across the rest of the weekend. Spurs with the early game on Saturday against Huddersfield. Of course, City have to go to Palace, the early game on Sunday. Remember, they lost at home to Crystal Palace earlier in the season. And Arsenal travel to Vicarage Road to play Watford on Monday. Now, interesting cover from France Football just recently. Basically, France's leading publication imploring Paul Pogba to make the switch to the Bernabeu and join Real Madrid. Their current midfielder, Casemiro, had this to say about Pogba. A world-class player at his level can play in any team. If he comes to Madrid, he would be welcomed very well. We know he is a great player. Well, Pogba in the mix zone following the Champions League loss to Barcelona kind of dodged around the issues. And when we play Champions League, it's always nice to play against a team like Barcelona. Today we lost, but the next day we want to win. It's always a dream to play in the Champions League against such a team. Then he was asked, would he like to face them in El Clasico? He said, I will not answer that. And then would say, I would only speak about the game. I will not talk about other things when asked whether he would continue at Manchester United next year.
This is just a...
It's a continuing theme, Craig, and continuing question we
Why would
ask.
What was the magazine?
France Football,
Why would they be imploring him to go to Real Madrid?
They want their star midfielder to
what? To do what?
To go to play in La Liga.
Do you know what stuck out when I saw that?
What?
He actually said the right thing.
Correct. Yeah. No, he does it. But it comes... We talk about this a lot. The question is, should Manchester United continue to want to build their team around Pogba? Is he... I guess, how good is he?
Is he that
sort of
around? They're not going to get Lionel Messi. They're not going to get Cristiano Ronaldo because both are at the wrong age, but they're not getting them. Eden Hazard's not going there, to my knowledge. So, you know, Mbappe's not going there. Neymar's not going there. So, who are they going to build it around?
Right.
If it's not Paul Pogba, they're going to have to go and find somebody else. So, and also, it's not a good statement for one of the world's biggest clubs having shelled out to bring him back. When they're trying to rebuild, by the way, and whether you agree with Solskjaer as the manager or not, they are trying to rebuild, to just say, oh, by the way, and here's your top player, and we're going to sell him.
Manchester United need to bring in players to not only help Pogba, but make Pogba better week in and week out. They're not in a position where they can let players go. They need to add quality, not get rid of it.
Yeah. But if he's that sort of superstar, should he be producing these, like, 5 out of 10 performances in the big games against your Barcelona?
Well, there is a criticism there that he can't avoid. However, at times the supporting cast, as Stevie said, is not great. Now, that doesn't absolve him of being able to take the game by the scruff of the neck more than he has been at times. But then again, maybe we're holding people to too high an account here, because we're just used to Messi and Ronaldo in their era being almost a one-man band at times. Now, Paul Pogba's never going to be able to do that, I don't think. But he can be a better Paul Pogba with better players around him, for sure.
Yeah.
But look at the way they play. Manchester United under Solskjaer have been generally a team that sits in a good spot and breaks. So, do you think Messi's teams play like that? Ronaldo's teams play? You know, all the other great players that were holding him to the standard don't play in teams that sit tight and try and break.
Robbo, what's your thought? Because he obviously thrived initially under Solskjaer, didn't he? But you can't help feeling he's regressed a little. Seems to be playing with the handbrake on again over the last couple of games.
Well, I've been disappointed in Paul Pogba because I had such expectations. I saw him a lot when he was playing for Juventus, where he was the best player on the field nearly every week. He hardly put a foot wrong. He did everything you'd want from a midfield player. And he's done that on many occasions for Manchester United, but not on a regular basis. And I think, to take Stephen Craig's point, I don't think Manchester United have a really significant game plan about where their next pass is, who's going to make these sort of runs. When he was at Juventus, he almost played blind passing because he knew where the next player was going to be. He knew what the tactics were. That was under Conte and a little bit under Allegri. I'm not sure at Manchester United, under a couple of managers, he knows what the game plan is and what's expected of him. And that's why he hasn't produced his best.
Robbo, but the other side of that, Robbo, is you know, you talk about Juventus, and you're right, but, you know, Juventus were a very dominant and have been a very dominant side in Serie A. And so, therefore, there wasn't so much pressure on one or two individuals because they were such a strong squad. It's a little bit like Angel Di Maria. When Angel Di Maria came into Man United from Real Madrid, he was this guy playing for this dominant Real Madrid side. They were 60-70% possession most weeks in Spain. All of a sudden, you come to a Manchester United that's moved on from Sir Alex Ferguson. They're not the same team. They're not dominating games as much. And Angel Di Maria wasn't up for the fight and hot-footed it off to Paris, where he can dominate games again in League One because they're going to win it no bother. But Pogba at Man United is not going to be able... You're not going to see the same Paul Pogba at United as you did at Juventus because he hasn't got the players surrounding him.
And he does it with France. He's got the players surrounding him. At Man United, he doesn't. And he either doesn't have that extra ability to pull everybody up with their socks, or maybe it's just a matter of time if they change the team.
All right, Extra Time is the segment of the show where we get to answer your questions. So now available on the YouTube channel as well, alongside all sorts of other ESPN FC content. Now, Gab, Mina and Paolo are back with the latest edition of the Serie A Awesome podcast. You can listen to that, ESPN FC, also on iTunes. I wonder if they're talking about...
It comes off a body part, it's a well-known fact. It comes off a body part, and we've seen it many, many times. Yep. Defenders coming out to block shot and sliding, and it comes off their leg or their backside or their stomach here and floats up into their arm. It's not a penalty kick.
Robbo, what was your thoughts? I know you watch the Italian league regularly. Was this a penalty?
Yeah. I think the Italian, was it Rizzoli? I think he's made that up as he's gone along, because it hit him on the hip, it hits him on the arm. That shouldn't be a penalty by any means. And Serie A do have a problem with the handball. They've given so many VARs one way or the other. They contradict themselves. It can be a great league, but some of the officiating hasn't been too good when it's come to VAR.
Well, by contrast, one that wasn't given, that perhaps...
Because if you look at the Danny Rose one from midweek...
Very similar to the Danny Rose one,
It's very similar that beyond Cowper's, is that how you pronounce it? Cowper's, whatever, went over, very experienced referee, and was very clear that was a handball because the arm had come up, even though he was sliding. And I've heard all the excuses with some of these people. Oh, where do you want to put the arm when you're sliding? That's not the point, because Danny Rose later in that match, and around the 80th minute, slid out to make a similar challenge and kept his arm by his side. Yeah. So this should have been a penalty. Frankly, the referee looking at it on VAR at the side of the pitch and deciding that is not a penalty is staggering.
You know, clearly what the officials are now, because there've been so many contradictions in one and another, they're actually now trying to think, what's the best thing to do here? As opposed to just looking at the actual incident and making a decision on it. It seems like they're saying, well, should I do it? Should I give it a yes or give it a no because am I going to upset somebody? It seems like they're just not refereeing the actual game now.
Well, to his credit, Nicola Rizzoli, the head of the officiating crew, did admit that the referee in that case had made a mistake. Didn't really help Milan much, did it? Who stay in fourth place, some 5 points behind their city rivals, chasing a top four spot. Juventus, 20 points to the goods. Now, the odds makers, a lot of numbers to take in here, so let's break it down for you. Of the favourites to advance, Liverpool 1-40, Manchester City are the least favoured of the favourites to still advance, but they're still 8-13 on. Spurs are the outsiders, or actually they're the most favoured underdog.
Say that again?
6-5. I think we got that right, didn't we?
You lost me.
Well, what City didn't get right was the first leg against Spurs. Ilkay Gundogan, you might have read his comments about them playing nervously. Well, his manager responded today. I don't agree with him, he said. Absolutely not. The game at Spurs was much better than at Schalke. The difference was Leroy Sané put the ball in the corner from 50 yards, and against Spurs, we missed the penalty. He, Gundogan, can say whatever he wants. I like when they express what they believe. What did you make of Pep's public response to his midfielder today, Stevie?
Well, he's always going to back himself. You know, I was certainly saying that I thought he got his team selection wrong. I thought he got the way they went about it wrong. But at the end of the day, Manchester City and Pep have they've set a standard and a way of playing that when they go below that, then we ask questions. And when you've got one of your players actually kind of agreeing with what we said, that they went all nervous and seemed to lose a little bit of confidence, then I think Pep's just backing himself. He certainly didn't completely disagree.
Right. You're just saying the game worked out differently because they didn't score.
Well, at the end of the day, I think it matters not a jot, because what's done's done. And you know, next week, it is next week, I think, isn't it? Yeah, it is next week. Comes around quick, and they've got to sort themselves out. And they've got to go again with probably a stronger side. What got me was, and you know, from Tottenham's perspective, it's a great result, but they were still dominated in the main with a City side who, by their standards, were probably in a little bit of second gear. And so expect a completely different outlook and dynamic Manchester City side at home. So, you know, Stevie said, Guardiola's always going to back himself. he thought, in his mind, he said after the game, this was a good performance. So if he thinks that's good enough to go back to the Etihad, then fine. And, you know, Spurs know what they have to do.
Yeah. Any problems with Guardiola's comments, Robbo?
No, not at all. But I don't think Gundogan will be playing in the next game because he was almost saying that he was the one that was nervous. And he didn't play particularly well. He was one of the holding midfield players alongside Fernandinho. They didn't get the ball through midfield into the front players quickly enough or well enough. So I think he's one of the players that may make way and they'll have a more attacking lineup in that second leg. But I don't think Man City have got too many problems. I still think they're the better side and they'll win the game, not comfortably, but they'll win the tie.
Well, a lot of people felt what we saw at the Emirates felt like a Champions League night. It wasn't, though. It was the Europa League. Arsenal 2-0 first leg winners against Napoli, and now 1-6 on to get through the second leg.
Well, I tell you what, that's strong because you look at Arsenal away from home, and then you look at and look, they're in a good position. There's no getting away from it. And this Napoli side is not the Napoli side from last year. Ancelotti's under pressure. You know, there's no doubt about it. They've sold some players, some key players have left, and they're not as good to watch in the eye as they were. However, they're still a big threat, and Arsenal have really struggled on the road. It's been well documented in their quest for the top four. And also, this is an Arsenal side that is not personnel-wise suited to going to Naples and saying, right, we're just going to sit in and we're just going to soak up the pressure. Because they're actually better defending when they're on the front foot.
Robbo, do you think Napoli have it in them to turn this around?
Yes, they've got it in them, I think, but they got the tactics all wrong in the first game. Anybody that's watched Arsenal at home recently know that they press the ball high up the field, and when you're playing Insigne and Mertens up front, who aren't players who are going to run in behind, they're clever players. You've got to get the ball in the top third of the field to dominate Arsenal, or for them to be at their best to create openings. That was the wrong decision. Milik will probably come into the side. I agree with Craig. Arsenal, if you look at them away from home, haven't been good recently. They've been poor in the Europa League away from home. It's going to be tight, but I think Arsenal will score that all-important away goal and just about go through.
And that would leave Napoli leading at 4. As you look at the bracket, of course, Napoli and Arsenal, the winner will play the winner of the all-Spanish tie, Valencia and Villarreal. Eintracht Frankfurt and Benfica awaiting the winner of Chelsea and Slavia Prague. All sorts of ESPN FC content on our YouTube channel, including this. Tim Howard talking and showing off some of his tattoos. You can see that piece on the YouTube channel. And also the follow-up, which involved Tim Howard becoming the tattoo artist. And Alexis Nunez was on the receiving end.
Let's see.
You asked for a tattoo, and I created a masterpiece.
Masterpiece, all right. Oh, yes, Queen,
right?
Slay.
One of one, that's what it is.
People are going to be asking for this. So let's get this.
Let's do it.
Let's do it.
Yes. Look at that. It looks so good.
That is freaking awesome. That is amazing. Original.
I need to get one, but with just a beard.
I'm going to draw his own next time.
Yes, for sure. I love that.
Alexis Nunez on our Instagram page as well, displaying it. What a cause to service that is. That's beyond the call of duty from our Alexis. I don't know if you would have offered up your arm to Tim Howard. Do you like the tattoo, for starters?
No.
I'm not a tattoo man myself.
You're really not, no.
I'm not. I don't.
Can you appreciate the artistic design?
No. The only thing I can see is utter stupidity.
I understand somebody...
That's what a lot of this show is based around, so at least we're being consistent.
I understand somebody, you know, if getting the kid's name or a kid's picture or, you know, but just to turn up and... Oh, I've got an idea. I'll do this on your leg. Aye, on you go. I don't get that.
Now, go and get a tattoo as part of the show.
Okay. There is a history on this show of tattoos. Remember this, Craig? Little Fernando Torres.
Yes.
Yeah, but that was like a kid's tattoo. We just wash it off.
And not everyone thought that, though. I
some of the monks, some people out there are so stupid. They thought that I was going to go... that I was equally stupid and was going to go and get a tattoo because I said, I mean, how? Well, I don't have any tattoos. I'm not against people having them. My son's got too many. But you know.
Also, you're against him having too many.
Is it? But, you know, it's a way above the pay grade. Come on,
right. Robbo, where do you stand on tattoos? We haven't had your input on this yet.
Do I look like a man that has any sort of tattoos? I'm sort of 55, bald head. I don't think I'm the sort of person that has tattoos. And my kids have got tattoos, and I'm not happy.
Well, no one's happy when the kids get them.
Do we sound as grumpy as him?
Robbo.
Hey?
More actually grumpier, but ESPN Plus is your home for MLS action. For Tim Howard, I was going to say he's in action. He's trying to stop Wayne Rooney. I don't know if there's going to be any tattoos involved. Colorado, DC United at 9 o'clock Eastern on Saturday as part of our ESPN Plus coverage. ESPN 2.
Well, you'll not be stopping Wayne Rooney.
No. Well, actually, Rooney's not playing.
Exactly.
Suspended.
After the.
No, actually, he is playing. So he already served his suspension on Tuesday.
He only got one game for that?
Not true. He got one game. Yeah, that's all he got. So he is back in action. Sporting Kansas City, meanwhile, were in action last night. Now, live transfer talk as it happens and develops and unfolds. All of it can be seen on our website, espnfc.com, also our YouTube channel. And that is also the place where you can catch the latest edition of Best of the Week. All right, I'm going to call it a Masters-themed edition of Extra Time, even though there's no golf questions tonight. I noticed there was one yesterday.
Was there?
That was snuck in there, yeah. Can't remember what it was, but I clearly remember. But there aren't any.
That makes a lot of sense, doesn't it? No golf questions, we'll call it Masters theme.
Craig Burley's beard is making an appearance again. It seems to be sprouting regularly. Did two teammates ever dislike each other so much it made the locker room or dressing room uncomfortable in your playing experience? Did you ever have teammates who disliked each other that much?
There was... Listen, there's... In every dressing room, there's a couple of guys that don't particularly get on.
Right.
There's always...
Human nature, isn't
always,
it?
right?
Yeah.
But if ever it got to a stage like that, the coach would have to get rid of one of them.
Right.
Because it would completely be it would be like a cancer through the rest of the dressing room. It would just cause too much trouble.
Did it happen in your experience?
No, not that bad, no.
Not to one of your teams?
No.
There's always been fights and stuff. Some pretty bad ones, I have to be honest. But they usually sort themselves out.
Yeah.
And I mean, you end up.
So you never knew a player to be shipped out of there just to kind of.
Put it this way, there are things that have gone on that basically you shouldn't do to a teammate, and it's always ended up in the same ending. Somebody gets, see you later.
Transferred.
Somebody's transferred. Somebody's told to go, whatever.
Yeah.
So
there's usually little cliques.
I can't think of anybody.
You always gravitate to,
you know,
maybe 4 or 5 lads hang about together and they guys maybe socialise a bit more, and then you've got some other guys that, you know, don't golf or don't go out for a beer or whatever. You know, they just, you know, you rarely see them away from the training ground or the pitch. You just stay at home. But and
does it actually make the locker room uncomfortable?
Usually find, I tell you what, you usually find the cliques start to happen when you're playing for a team that's starting to go through a bit of a bad time.
Yeah, that's when the real character.
That's when the cliques happen, and then it becomes even worse.
Yeah,
because you're fighting for results, and it's the dressing room split. And as Stevie said, you can't have that.
Robbo, your take on this? Ever witnessed two teammates dislike?
Yeah, there was.
Go on.
Yeah, there was 2 players at Arsenal that used to play cards on the coach, going to every away game, but they never spoke to each other. One accused the other one of cheating. They probably had 3 or 4 fights over the course of the 5 years that I was there, or the 4 years that they were there. One was Kenny Sanson, who went on to play 100 and odd games for England, and the other one was Alan Sunderland. And every time there was a pair in training and they got together, there'd always be a fight and a bad tackle. But we just got on with it.
Yeah.
Yeah, you just got on with it. It's just, you know, you can't have, 25, 30 guys and everybody's every day just
especially when you're being physical every day.
Right.
You're making challenges every day, so somebody's going to get hurt, somebody's going to take it the wrong way. But But generally, those things sort themselves out. It's the kind of off the field.
It's the same as in the
causing a problem.
Go on, Robert.
It's the same as in the studio when you two don't always get on, do you? There's an atmosphere. There's one or two in the studio all the time that don't get on.
I was going to bring up that analogy, Robbo. Yeah, but you know.
Oh, sorry.
Don't have to be.
Yeah, but it's TV. People don't realise. Always people say, "Oh, do you not get on with him?" And do you not get on with him? And
right.
Do you guys not get on? That's nothing could be further from the truth. It's TV. Right. If he disagrees with me or I disagree with him, then we have it out.
Yeah.
And then it might get heated. And then when you get us off here, we go right. Same time tomorrow. So I just.
Parody time. That's what we move on to. Why is Maurizio Pochettino, asked Dean, or what has he done to deserve Craig's constant praise? Have you been constantly praising Maurizio Pochettino, the Spurs boss?
You know what I think it is?
What?
Well, because all this talk about Man United and Solskjaer, I think that's what probably this question's about.
Is it?
Well, because usually it would be, well, if Pochettino was available, would you have Pochettino or Solskjaer?
Oh, okay.
And then we would go into the Pochettino and why we think Pochettino, and particularly you. So I think that's where this has probably come
He's
from.
backing me up. Look, I don't think he's the best or the worst, but he's done a good job. In the quarterfinals of the Champions League, he's managed them into some decent positions in the Premier League. If you look at the money they've spent and you look at the wage bill they have, it's half of the other big boys in the top six. And, you know, Stevie said, there's a reason that he's been mentioned with Real Madrid and Man United. He's still got a lot to prove, and he will need to get some teams over the line as we go ahead, whether it's Tottenham or anybody else. But I don't see a downside to Pochettino at the moment.
Stevie, you take this, and I'm 98.5% certain I know the answer to this.
Well, most normal people is 99. 99.
How did you pull 19.5?
There's an extra 0.5 of doubt. So Alex wants to know, if Liverpool don't win the league, would winning the Champions League make up for it?
Nope. Absolutely not.
Not even close.
No, not even close.
I should have gone 100% with that.
There would still be that pain.
Right.
Hanging out,
yeah,
right there.
To be fair, I'm surprised you never went 99.357.
Yeah.
Well, the slight doubt is I think Jurgen Klopp would like to win the Champions League, wouldn't he? Because he hasn't, and he got to a final with Dortmund.
No, listen, we don't want to win the Champions League, but if there was a choice...
Right. It doesn't make up for it at all.
98.5% of Liverpool fans would say the Premier League over the Champions League.
Champions League is just a...
Well, I think it's because it's been so long for Liverpool after so much success that, and also you would be beating one of the most talented squads ever assembled in English football.
Yeah,
that's another thing.
Yeah, Robbo, you take this one first from Mohammed. Can Arsenal repeat yesterday's same high-intensity game against Watford at Vicarage Road on Monday and grab those 3 points?
Well, the evidence of recent away games would say no. They didn't play very well against Everton. They haven't played very well in too many away games recently. I think it's something to do with the setup. I'm not sure that Unai Emery gives them the same instructions when they go out on an away game. They don't play with that same confidence. He said today that they don't drive forward with the ball enough when they're playing away from home, whereas they do that at home. In other words, no, I don't think they're going to play with the same intensity. They're not going to close the ball down quite as quickly. And I think they'll get a result, but it won't be the same sort of performance.
And you do it at Vicarage Road on a Monday.
Well, I tell you what, you know, you slagging Watford off there, because I tell you what, there's the reason they're in the FA Cup final, because they're big and they're strong, and they've got good players, and they're very well organised, and they've had an excellent season. And if Arsenal put another one of those dodgy away performances in, then the top four is going to be a problem for them.
Stevie, this is a long question. Maybe there'll be a short answer to it. Should MLS consider renegotiating the tournament structure of the CCL, CONCACAF Champions League? It seems like there's nearly no chance for MLS to win if the Mexican teams decide to go full strength against us. Within the current setup of the league, what adjustments could be made to level the field?
I would suggest that the early rounds absolutely make it difficult for the majority of MLS teams to get through.
Because of when it's played.
Because of when it's played.
Yeah.
You know, it's pre-season. Yeah. Mexicans are way in better condition than the MLS sides, and so the chances, the chances are really small.
Yeah.
Now, what I can't stick up for is the fact that, how many games in the MLS season are there?
6,
10,
5,
6,
5,
7.
6, 7.
So you should be 100% by now.
Yeah.
So unfortunately, Kansas City losing 10-2 in aggregate.
Right. It's not a good look, is it?
It's hard to defend it. Is what it is.
Yeah, because you say it's not as if they've only played one MLS game.
Right.
Which is tough because we all know when the season starts, you're blown. Yeah. You can play as much pre-season as you want, and as soon as we're playing in the Premier League, as soon as that first Premier League game came along, then it took you, I don't know, 2 or 3 games at least to get up to speed because you were huffing and puffing and blowing. But 6 or 7 games in?
You should be.
And besides, there's not much incentive for the Liga MX teams to want to change anything. They're doing just fine. Thank you very much.
And again, you could change the setup every single year to try and find another way around it. But the fact is, the majority of the Mexican teams are better than the MLS sides.
Yeah, correct.
From top to bottom. Yes, some of the MLS sides have fantastic individual players, but man for man, your average Joe in Mexico is better than your average Joe in MLS.
Buy defenders. Buy better defenders. And
spend some money on defenders.
And stop trying to tell people you get 3.275 goals a game in an MLS. That's what's that. You know what I mean? Reality check.
All right, finally, James has, it's more of a request than a question. Stevie and Craig sound similar when they speak. Can we have them announce their names beforehand? I usually listen to the podcast, so I can't see who is speaking before you guys are. So, Robbo, do you think there's any similarity to these two fine gentlemen and how they sound?
Not at all. One's got, I would say, quite a posh Scottish accent. The other is a toe rag from Scotland, really.
I can't believe you're criticising your mate Bully here, by the way.
Thanks, Robbo.
That's ridiculous.
I noticed you didn't identify which was which.
You got the lovely air. You got the lovely air accent, and you got the Glasgow accent. I mean, there's a total difference.
So who's the toe rag?
Well, I think he left that open to interpretation.
Nickel, of course,
What,
Nickel.
and what
See,
is
that's
a
the thing. I've got the spent 10 years in London accent. It's a very posh Scottish accent because we're actually both from the west coast of Scotland, where we both come from.
Half an hour apart.
The rhetoric is very, the accent is very similar. It's just that I've refined my accent a little bit.
Yeah.
Better.
Oh, he's got posh mates.
30 minutes drive away. You grew up from each other, yeah? So it can't be that different, can it?
It's not different. It's
so.
just, as I say, I've got some plums in my mouth.
Well, exactly.
But I don't know how I understand what the chap's saying. But
maybe we should have someone announcing each of your names
or
you speak on the podcast.
You should always know when it's Stevie because he's usually going, "Oh, away you go," talking nonsense.
Yeah, I find it difficult how somebody doesn't know the difference between me and you, to be honest.
Great. Well,
no offence.
Great minds think alike and sound alike. Obviously,
away
we go.
Have you been writing a book during this show?
Got a shopping list. Here we go.
Wait,
away we go.
Oh, but lift it up. MLS. Look.
MLS.
Yeah, you're just there, aren't you?
I got to cross that out and put Liga MX.
Oh, I see.